Okay, everybody, welcome back, OCW audience. Today we have a special session on Korea and East Asia, especially the relations between Korea and Japan. Okay, last time we talked about how we can promote Hallyu, right, Korean culture. And today I want to talk about how can we promote Korea-Japan relations, because as you know, Korea and Japan are the two leading democracies in East Asia. But there's been a lot of conflicts and tensions, so I wanna see what you think, your perspectives, okay? But before we do so, I wanted to give you a little different, slightly kind of a background. I gave you some readings, right, during the weekend. One was, last year, a bunch of students, Korean students, international students, they wrote about their perspectives on Korea, Japan, and also I gave you an extra reading about this one important issue about the comfort woman. Okay? Now, I want to go over the comfort woman issue real quick because this is something that is very central to Korea-Japan relations, these historical issues. And who got a chance to read the extra credit reading? You need to read more. Okay? Yes. The book was written by Sarah So. She's a professor at San Francisco State University, and she talks about how that many South Korean activists and their supporters have obscured the continued ubiquity of grave human rights violations of women, especially those working in the sex industry. So basically, she's saying that what happened with the comfort woman is a serious issue. At the same time, many Korean activists, they tend to kind of sensationalize and politicize the issue. Okay? What does it mean to sensationalize something? Yes. So maybe kind of exaggerate the facts so to make it even more emotional. And what does it mean to politicize?
Make politicians talk about.
Yeah, so like politicians get involved. Okay, and they try to get political benefits from that issue. And so she's saying this is kind of warping, the truth. Okay. Now, in our class, we often talks about x leads to y, right? And so imagine y is the outcome that we're trying to explain. Okay. And so the y is there were many Korean comfort women in the Japanese army during the Second World War. Why? Okay? Many activists will say, well, they were kidnapped. Okay? The Japanese soldiers kidnapped the Korean girls. Okay? That's X1. But then there might be other variables, other factors, which the author talks about, Sarah So. She says, actually, cases where Japanese soldiers kidnapped Korean girls were very rare. And actually, they were never documented. So there's actually no proof that Japanese soldiers actually went to like some kind of like madang or some kind of like field and just kidnapped the girl. There's no evidence that actually happened. But what is more likely to have happened is that number two, that many Korean and Japanese brokers, they lied to the girls. Okay, they said, oh, come and work in this factory or come and work in this nice restaurant. So they kind of lied. And most of the brokers were actually Koreans. Number three, that actually many families, it was the parents, the fathers, who basically drove away or sold their daughters. And number four, that maybe the girls themselves, they wanted more independence and freedom. And some of them actually made a choice that maybe working as a comfort woman is less bad than my other options. So if my options are either to stay home with my father who's always like beating me up or working in like a really like hard factory, then maybe working as a comfort woman is actually a better option. Okay? So that's issue number one. Okay? Why were the comfort women there? Okay? And then issue number two is today there are many Korean women who want apology and reparations from the Japanese government. And again, there's a debate why. Okay, that maybe X1, that maybe the Korean women they were really sexual, they're survivors of sexual slavery. Okay, they were sexual slaves. That's number one. But number two reason might be maybe they're lying about her story. Maybe they were never comfort women. Okay, so some Japanese people say that. But number three might be maybe this is more of a gray area, that maybe they did serve as comfort women because of family or economic pressure, but today they're strongly pressured by the Korean government, by Korean society to say that no, you had no choice. You were kidnapped. You were enslaved by the Japanese. Okay? So there might be a gray area. This is an issue that still resonates today because issues like, anything related to sex is such an emotional issue, powerful issue, that people who work in the sex industry, there's very strong pressure to say that this was not my choice. I was kidnapped. I was this is like sexual trafficking. Okay? It's still a very powerful issue today. Okay? Because as you know, for example, I heard that many like North Korean women are going to China now, right? And they work in the sexual trafficking because they need money. Life is very hard in North Korea, right? And recently, in the New York Times and Newsweek, there was a big controversy over sexual trafficking in Cambodia, okay? Because there's a woman named Somali Mon, okay? Has anyone heard of her? Okay, she became a big celebrity in Cambodia because she said that I am a survivor of sexual trafficking. My parents sold me, I was kidnapped, blah, 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 okay? And so she tries to save little girls from sexual trafficking, okay? And she talked about this one story, this one girl she saved where this little girl, her eyes were taken out by sexual slavers, okay? But later, reporters found out that, she was lying, She had all this support from people like Oprah Winfrey, the New York Times, and she raised like millions of dollars. But then later, the reporters found out that this was not true, okay? But her story was very popular, it resonated, because people want to believe that people do sex work not because of choice, but because you were kidnapped. It's like a very moralistic story. So I'm not saying that, who should we believe in, the comfort woman? I'm just saying you always want to be careful, okay? That, to really investigate an issue. Okay, so I wanted to show you a short clip from the news article, from the CNN report. Okay. So this actually happened last week, okay? So this was a big issue. And because, she had this story that, she was kidnapped, my daughter was kidnapped, but it wasn't true, okay? And then Sarah still talks about like similar things with a Korean comfort woman. Like there was this one comfort woman, she had a big news conference. She talked about how when she was a little girl, some Japanese soldiers came to her house, kidnapped her, okay? And then later when she actually submitted an official document, she never mentioned that. She said that I was I was sold by her, it was like some other issue, like maybe like parents or she ran away or something. But when you're in the news media, there is this tremendous pressure to say that you're the victim and the other person's like an evil oppressor. So, but as university students, I want you to, I always want you to be very critical and careful, okay? Make sure what is the real truth. Okay, now, in my class, I don't like it when the professor talks too much, so I want to give each of the students a chance to kind of share what you think, okay? Florian, can you go first? Yes, okay. Because come up here. Okay, come on up.
So I think actually should have we'll talk first about the Japanese-Korean relations before I address this.
We talked about this before in class, so we can kind of jump right away. Oh, because
kind of cold start now.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, the reason why I invited Florian is because Florian is a smart guy from Germany, okay? And Mr. Che and a lot of Korean students, such as Mr. Che, talked about how Germany is they think Germany is a good example for Japan, right? Because in Japan, the leaders they were saying that the leaders apologize every year. They're very sorry. They show how sorry they are. And maybe Japanese leaders do not do that as much, right? So, so I think was it you or? Okay, but many Korean activists say Japan should be more like Germany. Okay, Florian, what's your take on this?
It's just a little summary of some thoughts.
Oh, by the way, first introduce your name, where you're from.
Okay. My name is Florian Spentner. I'm from Germany.
What city?
Munich.
Munich, okay.
Munich, yes.
And you're a graduate student?
I'm a graduate student.
What program?
Economics and politics.
Yes. Handsome man. Are you single?
Pardon? Yeah, currently, unfortunately, yes.
Yes, okay. So keep that in mind.
All right.
Okay.
Here's just some thoughts, because whenever I hear this idea that Japan should apologize more like Germany did after the First and Second World Wars, I think that this comparison is a little ill-conceived, because the situation is totally different. And I want to make a point that it's not necessarily good when you just apologize, because as you know, in Germany it was both times the case that German was was seen as the only let's say as the only responsible party for that, so they had to apologize. They were forced to apologize, So that does not say anything about the motivation.
Who forced them?
The LAs or
Like
the parties that defeated them.
Okay.
So they demanded the apology, and it was more of a political thing to do to apologize, because they were back to the wall. They didn't have any other chances. But it doesn't say anything about the motivation why they did it. The true motivation doesn't say anything about, do they really feel sorry? Are they really willing to work on this or do something about it? And in the end, the problem is that after the First World War, when Germany had to sign the Treaty of Versailles, that was conceived among the German population as a very severe sanction. So they became angry, they became frustrated, which actually in the end led to the empowerment of the Nazi regime in the Second World War. So this is how you can see how how apologies that are not meant honestly could lead to further problems. And my point now is that maybe when you look at Japan, I think it's not a good idea to force people to apologize. I think it's more beneficial and more sustainable when you work on the problems together and maybe wait a little longer for the apology, but in the end get an honest one and something that both people can work with together. So my point at the end is yes, I think just getting an apology is not enough. You should give the people the time to work on it and find a mutual agreement, and not just force them and just have apology as the only final and everything result that you're working for. That's just some quick thoughts on the situation from my perspective, who has a little background in European history and knows a little bit about that. Okay.
Okay, sure.
Any further questions or
any quick questions for Florian?
All right.
Come up here. All right. What's your name?
My name is Kota Kawano from Japan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
My brief question to Florian is when you compare the European countries around Germany with kind of Asian countries around Japan, right? I think the countries in Europe, around Germany is really cooperative to compare with the other Asian nations like Korea and China. So what do you think about that?
You mean that the situation in Germany, in Europe is easier? Well, first of all, I think you can compare it. Of course, there have been war crimes, but I think the situation in Europe back then was totally different. And I'm not addressing any. I don't want to judge anything. I'm not comparing any harms. Obviously, people have been killed. It was really bad, but I really and I don't want to talk about how severe it was, and don't want to judge anything like that. It's more on a political basis, and yeah, I think now they are more cooperative, but at the beginning it was like there were really strong tensions.
In Europe, right?
Yes, exactly. But I think the situation is different insofar that in back then it was like there are lots of parties who were forcing this apology, and now here you're more free. You know what I mean? Like you have more freedom to apologize or not, or you have more freedom to do whatever you want. So there's a difference. But I think with the cooperation, you can't compare today's Asia with today's.
Okay.
Sure. I wanted to add that. Okay, you can sit down now.
Me too.
Yes, you can
Okay.
sit. Take a little break. We'll call you back again later. I think Florian is saying that when you force somebody to apologize, that's not a real genuine apology. That you really want an apology to come from within. And from my experience, like I'm from California, and Americans have done lots of bad things to each other, right? But one way to get people to genuinely apologize is to develop a sense of empathy. Okay, empathy means I understand where you're coming from. Okay, and I think if Koreans understand, I think if young Koreans like you understand that during the Second World War, many people suffered, right? Koreans suffered a lot. Okay, and the Japanese suffered a lot too. And I think when we understand each other's suffering, then maybe we can apologize to each other. Okay. And also we can think about how we can build a better future, right? So, Japanese did a lot of bad things to, Korea. Americans did a lot of bad things to Japan. And, North Koreans, the North Korean government did a lot of bad things to, Japanese, right? I think just this past week, Prime Minister Abe, right, they reached an agreement that, because North Korea kidnapped. This was actually true, right? They actually kidnapped many Japanese during the 60s and 70s, and they're still living in North Korea. And so, and this is actually documented, right? That they were actually kidnapped. And so I think from the Japanese point of view, many bad things happened to us too. And one thing that I noticed is that when you learn about the war, like when I was in California, we learned about the many bad things that Americans did to Japan. Okay, for example, we bombed all of Tokyo, so the city was totally destroyed. Look at this, right? Imagine Seoul like that. Well, after the Korean War, right? And then we firebombed the entire population, such as and there's a very famous photograph of a mother and child who was basically burned alive, right? Did you ever learn about this or see these pictures when you're in junior high, high school? You saw them?
Yes.
Okay. How about you? Did you see those pictures? Cherin, did you learn about that in China? About the Japanese people suffering? Did you ever see a picture like this? No. Okay. This was when Tokyo was firebombed during the firebombed by American planes. And so this is a very famous photograph of a woman and her baby who was basically burned alive. Okay? And so Americans have never apologized for this, but at least educators, we teach young people what happened, and we try to use this experience to move on. Okay? Because what happened was in the past, and it's hard for us to apologize for what President Roosevelt did, okay? Because he was in a different situation. At the same time, Obama wants to say that, what happened in the past was terrible, and we want to move on to a better future. So Obama, he's not saying that I apologize or what Franklin D. Roosevelt did was wrong. At the same time, he recognizes the tremendous suffering that the Japanese people went through. Not just Hiroshima, but also cases like this. Okay? And by recognizing each other's suffering, then it's easier for people to work together and to move on. Okay, if not apology, but at least in terms of cooperation. Okay, all right. Now, I want you to keep this in mind. Okay, and I want you to think about. I want each of you to come up and think about, how can we promote Korea? How can we promote, relations between different countries in Asia, whether it's like Korea, Japan, China. Okay? Karen, you want to go first?
I have a question.
Come up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just now you showed a lot of the picture about the dead Japanese people, and I have to show you a lot of the dead people, Chinese dead people, and when they killed in Nanjing.
I know. Wait, but first come up here.
But yeah.
We cannot see you on the camera. Okay. All right.
No.
What's your name?
My name is Tim. I'm from China, and I'm talk about with Korean and Japan and Chinese relationship about the second war. Yeah.
Right. And then anyway, so Chedding has many like very gruesome pictures of the bad things that what happened in China, right? And you learned about this in school, right? And I think you learned a lot about this, especially in Chinese school. I guess the only point that I want to say is that it's so easy to learn about the bad things that other people did to you. Okay? At the same time, like true learning, true academic learning, at least in my classroom, means that you learn the whole truth. Okay? Not just the bad things that Japanese people did to China, but maybe the bad things that maybe my country did to other people. Yeah, like Vietnam. So I'm American. I love America. I love California, right? But I know that the state of California and the government of America did many bad things. So California, the government of California, told the federal government, kick out all the Japanese, put that all in internment camps. Okay, so it was the governor of California, all the political leaders in California, my state, told the federal government, you need to put them in prison or kick them out of the country. And so the federal government, working with the California state government, put all the Japanese in the internment camp. You understand?
That doesn't have to do with Koreans.
No, my point is that as an American, even when I love my country, I still want to recognize the bad things that my country did. Okay? And then, and so I'm saying that, as you're saying, what's your name? Right. Taeyang is saying that, true education means not just learn about the bad things that other countries did to me, but also learn about the bad things that I did to other countries. That's my only point. Okay? That's the reason why I mentioned. That's the reason why I did the photographs of Japan. I'm not saying that Japanese people suffer more than Chinese. I'm just saying that every country. I'm just saying that I just want to point out that my country is not always great.
I know
Okay.
that every country will do the bad thing for other countries in the history.
Right.
Yeah, but we have to know all of the history.
Right.
Yeah, but I think that if you want to unite, you want the peace of history. Everyone have to apologize sincerely to the other countries who do that bad thing to them.
I agree. But then, Chedding, imagine you're the professor, right? Then you would want to say that, I am from China, I love China, right? But I understand that China also did bad things. Such as what?
Vietnam, yeah, in the maybe.
What about Vietnam?
Korean War or something.
Okay, maybe like, they invaded Korea during the Korean War. And also, Kota saying Tibet, that, you basically drove out their religious leader and you're taking over their country, and not only did you kick out the religious leader, you're basically, taking over the entire Tibet country, right? How?
With force.
Well, not just with force, but also they're replacing the population. Imagine China came to Korea, and now let's say they put all the Chinese people in Korea, so most of the people in Korea are now Chinese. Would that be good or bad? Many Koreans.
I want to point point.
Yeah, but oh, anyway.
We are talking about the Korea and Japan relationship, and the thing is that the hindrance for our relationship is the Second World War,
Okay.
and the apology thing and historical things.
Sure.
And what I want to say about is that it doesn't have to have things with one country's bad deeds or good deeds, but it's much about like how people communicate,
Okay.
how they think about
Sure.
others.
I want you to hold on to that thought. You'll be next. Okay? Cherin, do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
Right. So I want you to be a great student and a great scholar. So I want you to be able to not just show like Chinese people suffering, but also show like other people suffering. Do you understand? Then it makes you a better teacher.
But yes, but they show the Japanese people.
I only show Japanese people because it was Americans who did that. I want to show that I love my country, but my country is not perfect. That's the only reason why I put up the picture. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And so if you're the professor, then I want you to say that I love China, I'm a Chinese patriot. At the same time, I recognize that my country is not perfect. Look what happened in Tibet. Okay? Okay. Okay, anyway, I'm going to call you again to tell me about Korea-Japan relations, okay? China relations. Mr. Che. Okay. So I want to talk about two general topics. One is, how to promote Korea, and also how can we promote a better peace in Asia.
Sustainable.
Yeah, sustainable peace. What's your name?
Kwan.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. What year are you?
I'm a senior.
You're a senior
Yes.
in political science.
Yes.
One of our best students. Very nice.
Thank you.
He's also the leader of the Campus Crusade for Christ.
Yes. I'm not a leader.
Next leader.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
So he's a very proud Hanyang student. He's also a very committed Christian. Okay. And he also served in the Korean army.
Yes.
So he has a lot of experience, different life experiences. Okay. So think about East Asia, like Korea, Japan, maybe North Korea. Okay. Share your thoughts. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, yes, I think. What was your name? I forgot.
Florian.
Yeah, Florian. Yeah. His argument. I mean, his thoughts were kind of. I think his thought is good, and I think I really admire his thoughts. And
What was his thought? Summarize it.
to resolve the apology thing.
Okay.
Keep asking for apology is not the solution for everything.
Okay.
So it is like for Koreans, keep asking for apology, sincere apology from Japanese or Japanese politicians wouldn't solve the historical problems either, not at all. But what I think is that talking about the bad deeds, what Korea did in the Vietnam, what America did to Japanese, doesn't help at all.
Okay.
Because the situation is different. Because for Americans, bombing Japan they were in war, and for Koreans, it's more like they were suffer the war at the same time because they were colonized. Yes. What I want to say is that for Japanese, it was kind of payment of their provoking Americans or Allied forces, and also for the Germans too. But what I think the problem is that the hindrance for Korea and Japan relations, also in East Asian relations, is more like the Japanese government shows they don't really care about the history. Like Germany, for Germany, you don't put Hakenkreuz on your mark, on your heart. You don't use them symbol, right? It's like they at least even they don't apologize in their heart, but they care what people might think.
That's at all. It was just a little distinction, but of course, if you go to Germany now, everyone would say that they're sorry for what happened. So it's apology from heart as well. I was talking about more the period right after the war when people were still this ideology,
Yes.
and there was no feeling behind this sort of thing. But today,
Yes, thank you.
Right. So I think Florian is saying, like, well, just to clarify what Florian was saying, that right after the war there was pressure to apologize, pressure to give reparations. But today, because of internal changes, the German people have decided among themselves that we want to sincerely apologize. And I think Florian is saying that genuine apologies comes from within. It has to be an internal process. Okay. Go ahead.
So what I really do care about Japan-Korean relationship is that I don't think apology is the matter, but I think the politicians talk, like the Tokyo city mayor, what's his name? Ishihara Shintaro.
Right.
Someone like him, it makes Koreans upset. He makes Koreans upset a lot, for Chinese too, because his behavior is like he doesn't really care about what Japan really did in the World War II, the Second World War, and what Koreans might think is that, oh, so Japan did pay the American what they did for the war, but they don't really care. They already paid them everything, right? Japan paid like compensation for what they did in Korea in 1960s, right?
1965 treaty.
So what I think is that they paid the compensation, and now they don't care about. I mean, they don't think they did a bad thing. It seems like we paid all, so we can do it again, something like this. Like you showed the picture of the bombardment, and what we Koreans see is that Japanese talk about the nuclear bomb bombarded in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and what I think is that they are making them as a victim, but they were also the invaders for Koreans and Chinese. So what I want to say is that I hope Japanese do show something that they care about the history, what they did in Asia. So, first of all, during the Olympics, the uniforms of Japanese was like the rising sun, you know. What was that name?
The sun, yeah, rising sun.
Yes, the rising sun. I know it is a naval flag for Japanese navies, but it reminds us that about the Japanese Empire. It is something like Germans wearing their uniforms, the symbol Hakenkreuz printed on it. So for the best solution, I think for the Japan and Korea relationship is probably we can share the historical textbook. Yeah, we can share textbook and about on the history or ethics. Probably we can share our thoughts, not for our generation, but our future generation might share our thoughts. Like in Europe, I know that in European countries they share some historical facts on their textbook, so we can share the same thing. Like Korean scholars and Japanese scholars gathered up and make a textbook, history textbook for both nations' children. Then we can have some kind of empathy, what professors told us. And second thing, we are talking about the Hallyu, right? So we hear the same song. I love Japanese songs like Nakashima Mika. She's a great singer. We share the song, we share the culture. But what I want is we share our thoughts. I think we need to share more, something more, not just songs, not just idols, but some kind of ideas, like ideological ideas. We can share something more, and that could possibly solve the problem.
Sure. Can you think of any specific examples? Like you're, one of the leaders in Campus Crusade for Christ.
Yeah.
And then, there are many Christians from all different nations, including Japan. Have you prayed with Japanese Christians?
Shota?
You pray with Shota?
No.
Okay.
I think I never met Japanese Christian.
Really?
Okay. Never shared prayer with Japanese Christians. And I heard that there are not many Christians in Japan.
There's still some left.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for example, Shota is a Christian, so we can really, right? Right.
So you can pray together?
Yeah, we can share our prayers and that could be a one way.
Yeah, maybe it can be a very powerful way, right? Because I remember last semester we actually invited members from the Unification Church, Komegoe, and because they're very active in Japan.
Oh, right.
And one of the speakers was actually Japanese, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, that's just one of many examples of organizations like Unification Church or Sokogakai or Amway that have many members from Korean Japan, and they have conferences to bring Korean and Japanese members together. So at least they try to build like a friendship, and by building friendships, they can try to like maybe understand each other.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe that's something you can do as a future rising leader of the Campus Crusade. Try to maybe partner with a Campus Crusade chapter in Japan.
I think perhaps sharing same comics would be
Same what?
sharing the comics.
Comics.
Yeah.
Mana.
Yeah, manga.
Yes, a manga.
Yes. It'll be the faster way.
Okay. Then praying.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe in God.
Sure.
And I know there's a power in prayer, but what I know is that there are not many Christians in Japan. So, about the manga thing, Hagashi no Gen. Do you heard about that? Yeah. It was kind of impressive to me because it told what Japan suffered after the war. So, sharing that kind of comics could help sharing the thoughts and have empathy.
Sure. Okay. Can I have somebody next? Kota or Shota? Or do you guys want to share? You want to share something? Okay. Do you want them next to you or just come on? Okay. First. Okay. Why don't you sit down?
Oh, sure.
And then if he wants to call you, then he'll call you. Okay. First, introduce yourself.
All right.
What's your name?
My name is Kota Khan again. I'm from Japan.
Okay. What are you studying? What's your major?
All right. My major is basically international relations in Northeast Asia. All right. My most interest major is Japan-Korea relations actually.
Sure.
Yeah.
What brings you to Korea?
What, sorry?
What brings you to Korea?
I basically really love Korean people in the country as well. But I think to study for Japan-Korea relations for Japanese people is it's kind of very interesting actually because Korea and Japan looking at very same. I think because when I was in right after I came to Korea, I was kind of walking around in town, but many people just ask me in Korean even though I don't understand and I'm not from Korea. So looking is kind of very same. But Korea and Japan has been defined as close but distant neighbors. It means kind of culturally and geographically very near, but diplomatically and historically really far away. So similar but different. It's kind of really it makes kind of Japan-Korea relations for me very interesting to study. Yeah, and what I saw about how we can promote mutual understanding, some kind of better relationship between Japan and Korea is kind of promoting more joint activities among the young Japanese and Korean people because basically how Korean people can know about Japan is only through mass media's broadcastings, what they can watch, what they can read, what they can hear through the mass media things TV and newspapers and everything that they can know about Japan. I don't think it's the best way to get to know each other. So for example MT.
Oh
Yeah, membership training that Korean people used to do. Maybe you and Salt and Chaim also did in last weekend, I guess. I think those kind of MT this might be a kind of really efficient way to get Japanese and Korean students closer. But I think so kind of about governmental level, right? Currently, right, kind of Japan and Korea relations has been really getting it worse and worse day by day. I think, and the biggest turning point that when Japanese people in the government kind of started like hating Korean was when Lee Myung-bak ran it on the kind of controversial territory in 2012, right?
Tokyo.
Yeah.
Takashima.
So because right before he ran it on the kind of controversial territory, then right Japanese people kept quiet, kind of against Korea, right? Kind of even though how much no matter how much Korean government or people complain of Japan, but Japanese government and people basically kept quiet because we used to have kind of guilty about what we did in the colonial period in the World War during the World War II. But after Lee Myung-bak's kind of too careless action, political performance, then Japanese people also became like Korea, kind of hating Korea, like South Korea hating Japan. Japan also started hating Korea very much. That's quite very bad, and I think that's the biggest turning point between two governments and two people. And also, like in my opinion, right, basic treaty in 1965, and other like Murayama and Colonel talks, which apologized for kind of past wrongdoings by Japanese military forces in the government during the World War II, and about South Korea never accepted. I think the reason why South Korea never accepted the Japanese apology is just because South Korea are not ready yet to accept the Japanese apologies, because Japan has to be enemy for South Korea. Because for example, doctor is no longer normal territorial issue for South Korea, I guess. Like as I presented in my previous presentation, right, we can see like many things related to doctor in everywhere in Korea. City Hall Station, Itaewon Hongdae, alright, the War Museum, right? War Museum in Seoul-daemun, right? That's War Museum, but there is a monument and kind of big advertising about doctor. Because it doesn't matter, right? Doctor and the war. So doctor is kind of, how can I say it? Kind of symbol oriented for being for robbing Korea. And robbing Korea means kind of hating Japan, in my opinion. Being anti-Japanese means kind of robbing for Korea. It's kind of my opinion, so you don't need to be very sensitive. So but I think for our generation basically doesn't really have a kind of anti sentiment toward Korea and Japan that much. I mean, to compare with the kind of previous generations. So this is kind of best timing to increase kind of promotion between the young Japanese and Korean. So so I hope when our generation grows up, after 15 or 20 years, then I would try to have a kind of discussion to solve a problem, but not like current Japanese. Not like current two governments, right? And because what they have been doing now is having a fighting to have a fight, I guess. So in future generation, I hope to have a kind of constructive discussions, discussion to solve problem, not to have a fight. Yeah, thank you very much. That's basically it.
Okay, that's great. I just wanted to add a couple of things to Kota. I think Mr. Che is very worried that if the Japanese leaders do not show this kind of sincere regret, there's a chance that Japan might do the bad things again, like militarily invade other countries. One thing I do want to point out, I think, is that Germany and Japan, the population has really matured as a democracy the past few decades. And one thing I noticed is that when the governor of Tokyo, he's very controversial. There's also another politician in Osaka. Hashimoto. And he was considered a rising star, like a future prime minister of Japan. And then he made some very controversial comments.
About the comfort woman.
Right, about the comfort woman. And after he made those comments, many Japanese people rejected Hashimoto. So he's no longer considered a future prime minister. So I think even in Japan, there's many people who agree with you, who think that we feel very guilty and we need to be more sensitive. And don't forget, it was actually Japanese. It was actually Japanese activists and the Asahi Shimbun. right, that investigated and that discovered the Japanese military Japanese military's role in the comfort woman. Okay, that maybe they didn't actually go out and kidnap those people directly, but they did run the comfort woman stations. So they do have some liability, and it was because of these Japanese activists, in liberal newspapers like Asahi Shimbun, that Prime Minister Maruyama made that very famous apology in 1995, and he actually gave and he actually gave both public and private funding to comfort women from many countries, and so there were women from many countries who did accept the funding. So I guess my only point is that yes, there is people who do not apologize, but then there are many people who are also very sincere. So I want you to keep that in mind, that we don't want to stereotype. They're all one way. I wanted to kind of build on the previous comments by saying, how can we build friendship between different countries? And one way is to build from the grassroots, bottom up, through things like personal interaction and things like MT. Okay? So I wanted to talk about, we had an MT this past weekend. We had Shota and Cherim who came. I want you to kind of maybe share your experience, and Mr. Lee, maybe your experience as well. And also too, I want to point out that within Korea itself, probably there's many Japanese people, but it's very interesting because many Koreans, they don't like the Japanese government, but they do like Japanese people. Okay? After Americans, they probably feel the closest with they probably feel the closest with Americans and Japanese because they're considered kind of a high class people. Okay? In contrast, ironically, probably the social group that faces even more prejudice within Korea would be like the Joseonjok, right? We talked about this, that there are many rumors, somun, about all the bad things that Joseonjok people do. And so many Koreans, when they try to find a nice place to live, they try to find a place that doesn't have that many Joseonjok. Okay? So French people, Germans, Japanese, those are fine as neighbors. Okay? But we don't want to live in a place like Ansan that has many Joseonjok. It's just what some people think. Okay? And so maybe you can talk, maybe Cherim, you can talk about that issue as well. Okay? But again, those are stories that you hear, but on a personal level, right? Are Koreans nice to you? And Mr. Lee, are you nice to Joseonjok and Japanese? Or do you hit them? Okay? So you can share. Okay, Shota, do you want to come up? Okay. Okay. Shota is another exchange student from Japan.
Yes.
Okay. And then he loves Korea, but he was also very worried about how, because of Korea-Japan conflicts, many people in Japan who used to love Korea, they don't love Korea anymore. It's very sad, right? Okay. Everybody should love Korea.
What should I say?
Okay.
What should I say about?
Well, maybe just tell me your personal. Why did you come to Korea? Yeah, why did you come to Korea? Why are you so interested in learning about Korean language and culture? Okay.
Last weekend, we went to membership training in Korean University.
Okay.
Political
science.
Science.
Right, political science and diplomacy.
It was so exciting experiment for me about degree.
Okay.
Drinking alcohol. They talked about Korea, Japan, or another many kinds of things. So I was so exciting.
Were they mean to you? Were they nice to you? Were they sincere to you? What was the conversations like? And how many soju did you drink? Yes. Okay.
Soju is very good.
Very good.
Yeah.
How many cups of soju did you drink? Okay, that's fine. You cannot remember.
2 bottles.
Okay. Anyway, so after drinking a lot of soju, you have all these soju conversations, right?
Okay.
So what did you talk about? Tell me about the conversations.
Some of political science students have many opinions to Japan and Korea.
Okay.
So some of them think some of them love Japan or
Or
they
hate Japan?
Yeah, don't hate, but they don't have
Good feelings? Function? Interest?
interest.
Okay.
Yeah. So I thought those who have interest to Japan.
Sure. Were many Korean students interested in Japan? Did you have many people talking to you?
Yeah. They are interested in popular culture.
Popular
in Japan,
culture?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Such as?
Comics.
Comics?
Animation.
Animation? Dragon
Yeah,
Ball Z?
so, yes.
Okay.
So, and your name?
Your name?
Yeah.
What's your name?
J-pop stuff.
Oh, J-pop.
Yeah.
Okay.
J-pop idols.
Idols.
Yeah. So.
So they're like kind of like otaku.
Yeah.
Okay. A little otaku.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great.
Yes.
So when you first went to MT, were you a little concerned about what Koreans were saying? 조금 걱정했어? 아니면 걱정하지 않았어?
A little concerned and a little there are no my friends from there.
So they're all
so,
strangers,
yeah.
right? But then 나중에 조금 더 편해졌어? 친해졌어?
Yes, a little.
Okay, that's great.
Yep.
So MT is a membership training. This is a tradition in Korea. All the academic departments, we go for a weekend of a lot of games, and we did like dodgeball
Yeah.
and
Soccer.
you know, and soccer, and it's just a way for people to get to know each other. But in the past, MTs were just for Koreans. But since I am the first foreign professor in political science, I invited different people. So last year we invited the first African American to MT, and this year we invited the first Japanese and the first 조선족. Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Oh, okay.
Sure. You love Korea?
Yes.
Yes. And Korea loves you. All right. Cherin, are you ready? Come on. Okay. This is Cherin from where? What's your name?
My name is Cherim and I'm from China. Yeah.
Okay. And then so Cherim is a 조선족. His family was originally from Korea. Okay. And I remember he came to Korea it's been about 1 year.
8 months.
8 months. Okay. And then he felt, but he was a little worried about prejudice. He heard many stories in China about how Koreans were prejudiced against Chinese, especially the Korean Chinese, the 조선족. Okay, and so he was a little worried about going to the MT with all these Korean strangers, and he actually told me that Professor E, if you come, then I'll come, because like I don't like soju that much, so I didn't, so I was like, but I decided to go. So Cherim and Shota will be they feel better about going, right? 더 편했지 교수 있어서, right? So I went there together and introduced them to lots of friends. I told a Korean student, be nice, or you're gonna get bad grade. Okay? Anyway, tell me about your experience. Were the Korean students very nice to you? Did they want to get to know you?
Yeah, someone wanna get about me, someone wanna know about me, someone don't know about me. Yeah, because we are playing several teams,
Okay.
and the team who are in my team, they wanna
Get to know you.
get to know me, but other team they don't. There are not many people don't know about me.
Okay.
Maybe it's my problem. Maybe I'm not too shy and too.
Sure.
And
Right.
Yeah.
But don't forget also a lot of Korean students are kind of shy too, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I think culturally it takes a lot of soju to become friends, because in California we just say like hey, what's up, like what's like two strangers, right? But you don't do that in Korean culture, right? You have to, you know, so there's, you know, so you're either in or out, okay? So at least in your group, you're part of the in group, right? So at the MT, everybody broke up into teams. I think there were like maybe 4 or 5 teams, okay? So within the team, there's about 10 people. People are nice to you, right? But people who are from other teams, they're kind of shy. They don't know how to talk to you, okay? But I think there were still some members of other teams who were more active, and they did come up and talk to you, right?
Yeah.
Right, because for many Korean students, this was their first time talking to, personally interacting with, you know, Joseonjok and Japanese. And I think a lot of Korean students, they want to, but they just don't know how. Okay, they want to be friends with Japanese, Chinese, you know, Americans, Vietnamese, you know, different people, but they just don't know how. Okay, go ahead.
And I want to say, Joseonjok people is not different with other people. We will do something good and some mistake, some bad thing. So I want just treat the Joseonjok people as a.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I forgot that.
Okay. Keep on talking. I'm just gonna say bye to them. Okay. What? And just so soon.
I don't have anything because I already talked about.
Okay, that's fine. Sure. Okay. The 선생님, Mr. Oh, come on. 이제 와도 돼요. Right. We have a Japanese producer, Mr. Kobayashi. 학생한테 치고. I think he has a couple of questions for you. Okay? So 조금 편하게 얘기하려고 OCW 이제 녹음 그만할게요. Okay? So anyway, thank you OCW audience. We love you. Bye bye.